knowledge. Once again, I'm not going to try to defend Iran. I think they're, at least their power, the powers that be now, like the IRGC, like they're horrible.
None of what you said, I took to interpret that you believe that Iran is somehow not a bad actor. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, so I think that when it comes to the IRGC, I would think America would have to act before it could ever even develop any kind of weapon that would, could harm our allies or us. So once again, like I don't know, like I guess the justification for striking them now, the hard sell for me is that, like, we, especially Americans, we don't look at them as a threat to us. No, I understand they're a threat to Israel. They're a threat to our Arab neighbors, which we have obviously a very close relationship with Israel and the Gulf Arab states. I just don't know if this was like the appropriate thing to do for even solve anything.
It's always resources, Pepe. That's it. Wars are fought over resources, and the steady.
But will we get any more resources out of this fight?
Yeah, less than 1% of our oil. Less than 1% of our oil comes through.
That's Gulf. Yeah, but what about Europe?
The oil price is internationally traded. So and there are so many countries that are dependent on Middle Eastern oil. By the way, because the United States has made the seas of the world, safe for cargo to travel, right? It has never before existed, before 1945, right? That is purely a benefit the United States has provided the world is freedom of the seas, right? The oil price is globally traded. Okay, so if you have a fanatical religious state, which is an oil power, okay, which is Iran has significant natural resources, right?
But throughout history, we've had fanatical Muslims, that have played a large role.
That I'm not saying that that there aren't lots of criticisms that you can make about the Saudis, but the Saudis have really been at this point totally integrated into the American-led order, right? And they are now modernizing. It took a really long time, but it's now happening. Now, do I have particular expectations that that's going to continue or that they're going to go some other direction? I cannot foresee that, and I would generally say that the Middle East is filled with disappointments. But the fact is, having a fanatical regime like Iran, which has already subjugated 4 countries in the Middle East, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iraq, get more power over more oil resources is a threat to the global oil price, right? And that is another layer that we didn't talk about earlier. But I'm going to go back and say, when you say not a threat to the United States, my contention to you is that a nuclear threshold state is a massive threat to the United States if that nuclear threshold state is not a responsible ally of the United States and chants daily that they want to destroy the United States. And we've seen their handiwork for the past 47 years. It is not a mystery what they do. They are a revolutionary regime, and they are trying to convert or kill you. That is it. And them having a nuclear weapon is an imminent threat to the United States.
I get that.
And having that weapon is absolutely an imminent concern of the United States, in my view.
Absolutely. Okay, so if they had such a weapon or had the capability within any short period of time, I would agree with you. Now, look, I this is so lame. I'm having to because I'm somebody who's like more of an America First type, not to be confused with the Nick Fuentes types, but I don't look at them as a immediate threat to the United States. Now, do I think that if they had, let's just imagine they had much more sophisticated armament, and do I think that they would target the United States, yes, absolutely. I'm not naive, when it comes to that. So I just don't. This war in particular, the biggest problem I have with it is that we attacked Iran, but if the IRGC remains intact and you have, just like after Khamenei was killed, they're still attacking, they're still doing what they do, they still have all of the weapons where they'll gun down their people, and they'll be very belligerent towards, the United States and Israel. How was it worth it? I don't know that we can actually change the regime, and you would have to change the regime in order to basically stop this from happening.
I don't think that regime change is a goal of the United States. I do think
Trump
regime
said it was. He said unconditional surrender, and
okay, but he says a lot of things. You have to pick
somebody, right? that we find that is like fitting. This basically is regime change.
But he says a lot of things, right? And so, we both know that in the things that he says, right, he says things and then he doesn't always do what he says. But if he gives you an ultimatum, right, he's going to do something. Right? We just don't know exactly what he's going to do as part of that ultimatum.
Yeah. If I could jump in. Post 9/11, the U.S. policy when it comes to terrorism is you either fight it on their home turf, otherwise we're going to be fighting it here in the United States. So that's the number one issue with this. The second issue is that, I forgot. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something though too. There's a lot of skepticism because we've seen these same things play out, especially with the Iraq War. Weapons of mass destruction. Come to find out there are none, and we're hearing the same thing. Iran's got nukes. Not nukes, but their uranium enrichment is at a certain level. Okay, Trump strikes that last year. Okay, that's cool. We went in there, clean, precision, scalpel cut, got in, did what we had to do, got the fuck out. Now it seems like we're going back into this, and this is not going to be a clean precision hit, simply because we're starting to see now we cut off the head of the snake, but there's other parts that are starting to come out now, and they're fighting back. Okay, when we take them out, are there going to be more after that? And then are there going to be more after that? How long is this thing going to go? Part of that skepticism, again, I wish Yaakov was here because I wanted to discuss the link that he shared with me. But we're hearing, oh man, they've got these ICBMs. They got these ICBMs, and from what I'm reading, it hasn't been officially confirmed. So this kind of goes back to deja vu of weapons of mass destruction. So I have the right to be skeptical and saying, hey, are we being played for Boo Boo the Fool again? What is the bigger picture? What is the bigger goal?
I remember to say, how many days has this been? We're 8 days into this. So what I did see was a statistic that said that the number of missile launches from Iran went from 350 down to like 2. So either they've decided to hold back on purpose, or we have decimated their ability to make those kinds of strikes. But yeah, you made a good point, Sig. Yeah, we've heard that tune before. That's why I think they're also playing the Iranian people are being repressed, they're evil, etc. And in this particular case, it's not hard to convince people that, they've been funding terrorism and committing terrorist acts against the United States. So, anyways.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too, man. Like, as I'm digging through this stuff, because I've learned a lot in the past 18 hours or so, just digging and doing a lot of research. I've got a lot of questions now, because what I've learned is Well, I mean, I've been known, like, our conflict with Iran started because we went over there and meddled in their shit. We overthrew their government, and the rebels came back and overthrew the government that we. So we technically started this back and forth with Iran, right? One thing though is I'm finding out is during the Iran-Iraq war, Israel was supplying weapons to Iran, which is kind of funny to me, and I'm digging a little bit deeper to find out why. Why would they be supplying Iran with weapons and secretly doing it?
I'll explain it to you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Dan, if you could, please.
Okay, so that was the Iran-Contra scandal, okay? And after the fall of the Shah, right, the Americans were trying to create a back channel, okay, to the new Iranian regime to see if they could have a relationship with them like they had with the Shah, okay? And there was already this immediate threat from the Iraqis, and they didn't want the Iraqis, okay, to take over Iran. And so their resolution was, we can try and build a relationship with the new Iranian regime. We're gonna work with the Israelis to do that, okay? And the way the Israelis think is that if the United States comes and asks you to do something, the Israelis, unless it's really not in their core national security interest, will do it. Because their view of the alliance that they have with the United States is you have to be a good ally to your ally. You give significant demonstrations of value. So it was done in secret. It was done, technically speaking, was considered to be illegal under U.S. law. But the George Bush Sr. went to the Israelis and said, we want your help with this. And they said, okay, we're going to help you. And the Israelis had such a functional and close relationship with the Persians that they wanted to see if they could recreate it. But they also did not want to see Iran fall to Iraq. Okay, so there were multiple strategies there. It failed. The strategy failed from a relationship standpoint. It was somewhat successful in preventing the Iraqis from taking over Iran, which was at the time was a threat. So that is basically the explanation of why that occurred. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and Yaakov's back on stage because I wanted to ask Yaakov and pick his brain on the article that he shared. Yaakov, I read that article that you shared, and if you PTR, this paragraph grabbed my attention that there's no actual confirmation of ICBMs. And I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that based on that article you shared.
Yeah, the thing that caught my attention was there's desire, as stated by the government, that they were trying to develop such a weapon, and their goal was to develop a weapon that would reach Washington. So all I said was that there was a desire for them to develop it. And I need to dig into, there's another source that they were, I got to find it. It's on my computer someplace. A different article that they were working with other foreign technology partners to create multi-stage rockets. So as anything hasn't been created, you can see in that article that they've talked about the development of a successor rocket to their farthest range rocket, which is homegrown technology. So read throughout the article. I think it's clear what their intentions are, what they were trying to do. And I think if left on a path unopposed, that would be their ultimate destination goal.
Have you heard anything about how far along they are in this process beyond just desiring?
No, I'm not an intelligence officer.
Okay, and that's
be completely honest.
Oh, go ahead.
Someone I think it was someone said they wanted to develop he said they wanted to develop ICBM. Someone said no, they didn't want to develop an ICBM. So I said, okay, here's an article that speaks to their desire to develop an ICBM.
Okay, yeah, that's
They-
not what the
they-
discussion
they
was. The
developed-
discussion was
At the time, well,
yeah, at
They,
the time,
they've developed ballistic missiles that will go thousands of
Daniel, hold on,
kilometers.
real quick, brother, real quick, one second. Like, this is where, again, like several times, Yaakov, I gotta correct you because you guys don't.
okay.
You guys don't listen, man, because you guys have several times misworded and misphrased things. We were asking for evidence of ICBMs, and that's what we asked for, and that's what the articles you and El Normal posted. So that's what the question was. So that's why, yeah, desire is different than,
No,
hey,
hold on.
is there any evidence that they have them?
Norm's statement that I heard was they want to develop an ICBM. Someone said, prove that they want to develop it, prove that they're developing it. I posted that as links that that's their goal. That's what they're seeking to do. Nothing more.
So my comment to you is that they have developed ballistic missiles that will go thousands of kilometers. They haven't. So if they develop things that go thousands of kilometers, and America is the great Satan, do they not want to increase the kilometers and the range of their existing capabilities in an environment where they had thousands of ballistic missiles, many of which were fired at Israel, and in the most recent, product of this war over the last few days, we've seen that they're firing them at everybody.
Well, yeah,
So-
of course they want to extend the range, but the question is, are they a direct threat to the United States? And until we have confirmation that these missiles exist, they are not a direct threat to the United States.
Well,
We don't know what our intelligence agencies have.
Yeah,
And that's why
I
the
would
point
just-
before is that
I would just argue.
people are
Yeah.
going to be skeptical again because we've been told this before. Weapon
Yeah,
mass
yeah,
destruction,
yeah.
they exist, and we come to find out that's not true.
But
And 20 years later, and trillions
Sure.
of dollars later, and thousands of lives lost, we realized it was all based on a lie, on the same type of
Right, but we know that there is an Iranian nuclear program that is not hidden. We know that there were nuclear sites there. I mean, that is why the sites were struck.
Right, and
This
that's
is not.
and that's fine. I'm cool with that. That's why we struck them and we were told, hey, we
So-
took care of the issue. Yeah.
Right. So in the end, right, the belief is what they did significantly damaged the program and delayed it by years, right? But they are not going to stop. And I really think it's important for Americans. Now, I'm not an American. I am extremely pro-American, right? I think America is the most important country in the world, and I am constantly concerned about Americans' actions in the world because of that. And I care about it deeply because it really does matter, right? I really think, that in the age of the Cold War, there was a very visceral understanding that the threats the United States faced were real and imminent. The Soviet threat was real and imminent. And there was this constant sort of move on the chessboard and counter move on the chessboard for 50 years, which ended with the dissolution of the Soviet Union because their system just doesn't work, right? But they did a lot of extremely dangerous, terrible shit, right, for 50 years, right, all around the world. And the United States took that extremely seriously and acted, against it for 50 years, right? We in that post-Soviet period, there's all of a sudden, I think, frankly, an inability for people to think about what the strategic threats really are and how to keep those threats small instead of letting them get large. Remember that if you let these threats metastasize, that's what you got World War II, from letting those threats metastasize. And so it's much better to treat these strategic threats and understand your opponents and what they want and head them off at the pass the same way the United States was doing in the Soviet era. And that is now what this current administration is doing. It has a very active foreign policy to try and prevent that,
no
right?
problem with that, Daniel. But what I want to make sure is is that we're not lied to again. That's what I want to make sure, because it's happened. And like I said, people have a right to be skeptical because we found out we were lied.
No doubt. I think it's really important for Americans to
100%. We got to stay on top of the game. I get it. Yeah.
I think Americans should care deeply about how their dollars are spent. They should be very interested in it. They should understand how American dollars are actually spent with their military abroad, which I don't think most people do. Right? There are permanent U.S. troop deployments all around the world. They cost billions of dollars. Okay, that is a form of foreign aid. There is a permanent. There's 40,000 American troops in Korea. There's 40,000 American troops in Japan. That costs $20 billion a year in each one of those places. No one spends any time thinking about that at all, right? Aid to Israel is always an issue. It's sort of the point of me saying this is not to highlight that I think that analysis or that lens about Israel is unfair, which I do think, but that most people don't actually spend the time to think about how America is actually executing those expenditures in different places around the world. You need to compare and contrast. And I think in this context, while it's true that the adventure in Iraq was a disaster, right, and that Afghanistan was a disaster, that doesn't mean that history ends and that the threats to U.S. national security end, and that every single conflict going forward is Iraq all over again. And I think that it's important, and my recommendation would be, without trying to patronize anyone here at all, that Americans try and, separate themselves from that idea, because otherwise you just can't get anything done. And what you really don't want is an erosion of American power, because something's going to fill that void. And we're not going to like it.
Okay, on that point right there, Daniel, I agree with you on that. It was only 30 years ago we had a balanced budget. Okay, we're pushing $40 trillion in debt. And if this happens again, we're fucking cooked either way. So trying to keep that balance of power while now you're $80 trillion in debt and your country is financially in shambles and ruins, that's another threat right there. So there's this fine balance of again, trying to make sure, hey, we don't go through this again, because if we go through this again, we're fucking ruined. We're ruined financially as a country.
Yeah. Look, on, the way America has spent money in its execution of military affairs has not been efficient, to say the least. It's been extremely inefficient, right? And there is no accountability, and that is a real problem in the American system. But one of the things that we're discovering about government spending in the United States is that it's a giant corruption machine, right? And that all of that stuff with USAID was really a giant graft machine, which was taking money from the American taxpayer, funneling it in all of these organizations run by Democrats, right? And then having a merry-go-round of people going from politics back into these organizations, and then those organizations donating money back into the Democratic Party. So it's a massive scandal. And then on top of that, we have seen the frauds, right, that have come out in Minnesota, right? And there's going to be a whole bunch more. I know a guy who built an AI, okay, and he went and started trying to find fraud in public records in California. And it's not come out yet, but he's found billions and billions of dollars of fraud. Taxpayer money is being wasted in massive fraud that occurs in the United States because government is unaccountable. And this is, I think is an amazing part of the time that we live in. We are so lucky. Is AI is going to increase transparency in American government and what the government is actually doing so much, right? That I think that there's a very good chance that we're going to eliminate a lot of that spending, which is really, like, I think we have to understand, government is its own thing and has its own interests, and its primary interest, and those of it who are in it, is to grow, which increases the expense and is really bad for the country, right? And I personally have come to the conclusion that all of the liberal institutions that we believe in have failed and are corrupted and no longer work. But their answer is always to increase spending and throw more money at the problem, right? And that has never seemed to work. Look at all of the money they've thrown at education. It only seems to get worse. The problem is the people and their ideology and how they execute the spending with no accountability. And look, we are all, I think all of us as citizens in our countries, we also share a little bit of responsibility, because when people do political polling about what people care about, government graft is not at the top of the list, right? We talk about the economy. The economy is at the top of the list. Our jobs are at the top of the list. We don't talk about the government wasting money. And it is sort of, not something that people will think about until it's like so bad that you see it on every street corner in every city in America. And you're like, our entire system is corrupt and our government is filled with thieves. You have a lot of thieves, okay, in the political system of the United States. And I hope that the Trump administration continues and is able to start cleaning that up. They found a lot of shit, and it's sad. One of the other things that is unfortunate about our age is that we memory hole all of the scandals really quickly. You forget about them, right? And that is really unfortunate. There is an execution gap there still. Like, I still do not understand, why is there no massive investigation of the Justice Department with all of this spending at the USAID, where money was flowing from USAID into non-governmental organizations, and then those organizations were all making donations to the Democratic Party. How is this not a massive political scandal, right? There are like a number of scandals like this, and I don't understand it. So there's still a big issue there, right? And I agree with you that there's been a really bad execution on how American military funding has been executed. But we are now, I think, in an environment where that is all being challenged. There are new defense contractors, and they are building products that are far less expensive to roll out and far less expensive to replace, because those people really believe in America. And it's as much, how the defense contractors have worked over the last, let's call it 50, 60 years, is as much a byproduct of how government works, right? And its fault as anything else. And so it's tremendously expensive and really inefficient and too expensive, right? Like, anyway, I'll digress.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man. Really appreciate your input. Thank you.
Guys, it's been great chatting with you. I'm going to go watch a movie. You guys have a good night.
Hey, nice
What
meeting you, Danny.
movie?
You as well.
Good night,
I'm
Daniel.
going to go watch.
And hi,
I'm going to go
everybody.
watch. Hey, how are you? I'm going to go watch Dune 2, I think.
Enjoy.
Thanks. See y'all later.
All right, take it easy, brother. Thanks, man. What's going on, Miss L? You want to chime in?
Hey there. What's
Howdy.
the topic?
Oh, we're
Or
just
is
going
it
back.
chill now at this point?
No, it's actually been a good room. It's been chill the whole time.
Good.
It's actually been a really productive room. I think we've been at this shit for probably 8-9 hours already.
Oh my god, nice.
Yeah.
Oh shit! What up?
Hey, how are you doing? Pop, I haven't heard your voice in a minute.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute for real.
Yeah. Okay, P.
Good to be
Wake
here.
up.
No, I've been here just listening in. Some
Yeah.
shit I don't know about it. I just don't talk about it.
Yeah. I get.
I like that Daniel guy, man. Very knowledgeable, very informative.
Yeah, he's cool.
Seems like it seems like a cool cat, man.
And
Really
willing
impressed.
to have the conversation. So
Yes. See, this is what it's about,
Yeah.
man. This is what I fucking want. Let's just fucking throw ideas at each other
Honestly, it's
and hear each other out.
complicated. Yeah, I mean, it's deep.
But yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. I think we've all come to common understanding, and I think we all see where each other's coming from, and challenge each other's points and stuff. But yeah, this has been a great conversation, man. Really appreciate it.
Yep, and apparently all we need is more cowbell.
Always more cowbell.
What's your what's your take on the current situation in the Middle East? So I haven't heard your take on it.
My take. I mean, mine is it's complicated just because obviously Iran is a thorn in our side, right? I mean, my feeling is war with Iran is messy as fuck. The potential for World War III, huge. But at the same time, these are people who aren't like, not necessarily angling from just a purely financial angle, or they're religious fanatics. And so reasoning isn't necessarily an option so much. Choking out shipping lanes, they love that shit. They love funding different terror cells, putting hits out on people. I think the bigger problem is selling cheap oil to our enemies and then getting their tentacles into our hemisphere. Cuba, getting, like that reach there bothers me a fucking lot. Is there some validity to Russia recently selling them very enriched uranium? That's a fucking problem. I don't know. I mean, it's complicated because do you let them just go with this shit? The humanitarian issue, that's one thing. All the other shit bothers me a whole lot more. I don't mean to be cold, but the other shit bothers me a lot more.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and that's where I'm at. Like, I understand. Hey, I'm America first. We got to do what we got to do to keep America safe. We got to step on some fucking necks to do it. It is what it is. There's no utopia out here.